It's Epic Fail Cosplay here with a panel that I initially created back in 2023 for Anime Bonsai that year. I did run the event and only one person came, which has a funny story that I'll get to later. I was going to run this event again this year for 2024. However, the person that I returned to run it for had to leave. And since I had returned in solidarity with them, when they left as a volunteer, I also left in solidarity with them. I'm sorry, but I had to do that as a way to show my love for that person. However, because of the gratitude I have for all of you as attendees and as my friends, I thought it would only be fair to record this presentation and share it with all of you for free. I will also have the slides available for download in the comments section, and I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have either in the comments or in private DMs. So this panel is called Hosting Events as a Cosplay Group with Epic Fail Cosplay, or a Guide to Hosting Events as a Cosplay Group. I talk about this in a way that it works for both panels and events. I hope what you can get out of this is a way to more professionally run your events, have the proper organization, and just have more fun because you know what you're doing. So, what we're going to cover is organizing your event, planning your event, executing your event when things go wrong after the event, and some additional notes that I added today. I would like to add that I haven't really gone over these slides since I first made them a year ago. So, if I sound like I'm surprised over what's in here, it's because I probably am. So, organizing your event. When you organize your event, you want to know where to save your files and what you want to track. Where should you save your files? On your computer and in the cloud. And honestly, if you can add a thumb drive into that, that's great too. I usually make all of my base files on Google Drive in a shared folder, and obviously I'll include the people that are involved in that event. But I always make sure someone has access to those files in case I can't be there. Keep them organized in a way that makes sense to you. This is what made sense to me. On my drive, I've got a folder. It's shared. That's why there's that green folder with the person in it called anime conventions. And then it's split up by anime conventions. And then after that, it's split up by year. And then I split it up by event. So if you clicked on anime Bonsai, you would see 2018, 2019, 2021, 2022, 2023. And you click on 2023 and you'd see everything that I did for Anime Bonsai last year. Inside the Google Doc that I would have the day, time, and location saved, who the main host of the event was, so basically who was in charge, the description of the event slash the blurb, what you've completed, what you need to do, what to bring, what to buy, all of that stuff is what I would save into this singular file. So you can kind of see the beginnings of it. I'd have the title, I'd have all of that information in the blurb. So when it comes to planning your event, you need to consider how long you need for planning, who needs access to the event files that you're planning, and all of that information while you're planning it. You want to consider what you want the event to look like, how you want the event to feel, what you want to do, what you need to bring versus what the convention is going to provide you. You also need to figure out how to write a blurb, and you need to run at least one practice test. So, how long should you let yourself plan? Give yourself about a month per event that you're running. So for 2023, I ran 5 events. So the latest I could start for an October event would have been May. I actually started in November of 2022 for 2023 because I was competing in the cosplay contest. And I knew the cosplay contest was just going to slow me down. I planned for that and started incredibly early. I built the initial PowerPoint for this back in August of 2023. But I had been planning since November. I had built that initial Google Doc and then reorganized it back in February and then thought about what I needed to do because I had that full to-do list inside of that doc and then was able to create a PowerPoint in a single day. But I had been thinking about it for like 6 months at the time. I also save all my files because I tend to reuse them and I'll refresh them year over year. So I updated this in September of 2024 and then again today on October 17th. Because I made the base Google Docs for all of my events back in November, I was brainstorming and knew what I needed to think about for that amount of time. And I was also allowing myself to have those sparked moments of genius because I was brainstorming, thinking about it for a few minutes here and there, knowing what I had to work on, marking off other things to do, working on my cosplay contest, but also just knowing what I needed to think about. That way, when I sat down to build the PowerPoint, I've been thinking about it for so long. Again, I built it in a single day. Who needs access to the event files and information? Everyone involved in planning your event. If they're involved in running your event, they need to be able to at least look at it. If they're planning your event, they need to have editing access. My friend Tony and guest and or Quack and Cosplay has access to everything I make for Epic Fail. She could be Epic Fail if I suddenly just disappeared. I forgot that I shared this with Sarah Hall and told her to tell everyone that she was me if I didn't show up to an event. You don't need to give full access to absolutely everyone. They don't have to be able to edit it, but people who are involved in performing in your event must be able to see it because they need to know what they need to practice. And you can just sit down and decide who do you trust to have full editing access to all of your shared files. For me, it's Quack and Cosplay and my niece Megan. You can watch who has access to your files. You can remove access. You can audit access. In fact, I highly recommend that you audit access every few months. If they're no longer involved, kick them out. They don't need to see everything that you're doing, but the people involved should be able to see what you're doing because that's the only way for them to know what they're supposed to be doing without you just holding their hand through every step of the way. What do you want the event to look like? So, do you need decorations? Are those decorations even physically possible? Can you make them? Do you need to buy them? Keep track of that on your Google Drive. What vibes do you want? Are you running a comedy show? Are you trying to relax after a long day? Trying to give somebody an experience like a maid cafe does? And how can you make your event welcoming, regardless of what type of event you're trying to run? What do you want to do during your event? Is this some sort of roundtable with experts? Are you playing games with the attendees? Are you running an improv show? Are you running a contest? Are you cosplaying and being in character? Or are you giving a presentation? These are the types of things that you can write down and think about before you create your event. That way you know what you're going to be creating. These are all different types of events. Me going to see Otaku Dreams Cosplay Cafe perform, the halftime contest or cosplay contest is going to be different than me going to see them perform at their actual cafes. They, have to plan. What are they doing? Are they going to be in character? Are you running a panel as if you're the host club? Which character in the host club are you? Those are the types of things you want to be thinking about. And if you're writing down what you want to do and keeping track of that in your Google Drive, your event's just going to more naturally come together because you are allowing yourself to think about these things before you even build it. What do you bring to your event versus what is provided? This is where you're going to be in contact with the showrunners. Make a list of what you want at the event. Assume that you won't have proper computer connection cables. Those adapters you should just bring with you. Assume that you won't have internet access, so that's why you're going to have files in Google and you're also going to download all of them. Have you ever been to a convention that had consistent internet access? Because I haven't. So have backup options for things that should be provided but last minute aren't available. If they promised you a speaker and then they don't have one, or they promised you a projector and then they don't have one, you don't have to bring a projector, but have a backup. Writing your blurb. This is really important in planning your event. It's what you're going to be showing the showrunners, what you're going to be doing. It's how you're going to even advertise your event to the showrunners and to attendees. So you want to be able to write a good blurb. What should be included? An inviting description of your event. You don't have to give away everything that's going to happen. After reading the blurb, they should have some idea of what to expect. How do you make sure it's not too long or too short? Treat it like an elevator pitch. One short paragraph, around 3 sentences. It's plenty. So, here are a couple of examples. This example was really fun to write. It's for an event that I titled I Didn't Think to Plan Ahead, so I knew the event should be really vague. I about died of laughter after I finished writing it because of how vague it ended up being. But this legitimately was the event blurb that I wrote and submitted, and I'm going to read it because I think it's so funny. Welcome to insert title of event, an event where you insert event activities. Join host of event as they describe event. Don't forget to insert witty joke. For complaints, see Puggy in the vendor's hall. When I first submitted that, the showrunner in charge, was dying of laughter. They actually thought that I forgot to fill out a layout blurb that I had created. And then they looked at the title of my event, laughed again, and realized I was being dead serious, that that is what I wanted on the schedule. But again, that is so vague. So here's an actual good example for an event that I call Anime Feud Network. Score all the great things about game shows at Anime Feud Network. Prizes, trivia, treats, and outwitting the host galore. Come play popular game shows with an anime twist, hosted by Epic Fail Cosplay. You're invited to this hectic and unaffiliated with the Game Show Network event. This is a really good blurb because you know what's going to happen. You know what they're going to be doing at the event. You know that there's going to be candy. You know who is hosting it. And you understand that it's just going to be a lot of fun. And that is my example of blurbs. But if you'll notice, they're both, about 3 sentences long, 4 lines long. It's something that you want to be able to share very quickly so that people can get an idea of what's going to happen. So the next thing that you need to do is practice and test your event. Test your files, check the links, check your animations, proofread, have someone else proofread, practice being in character, practice going through the presentation. You could do this while testing your files. Work with your group in and out of cosplay. Test your files. Seriously, test your files. I found typos in this while making this recording for you guys. And I have tested these files before. But because I didn't read aloud all of it, I didn't notice a couple of things. You're never going to fix everything unless you test your files. Executing your event. When do you need to show up? When do you need to let attendees in? How do you keep control of your event? When should the panel end? What do you need to do after the attendees leave? When should you show up? Early, with enough time to set up, around 15 minutes before your event time. More if you have decorations, but don't step on the event before you. Some events only have 10 minutes in between the two. It's good to show up about 15 minutes before, especially if they end up ending early, but they should be ending at least 10 minutes before you start. But don't start setting up while they're still running their event. Start on time as much as possible. If you have to start late, this is when communication is going to be the most important. So when should you let your attendees in? I usually let them in about 5 minutes before the event start time, especially for my 18+ events. This gives time for everyone to show wristbands and ID and get into the room. It's okay to push this a little if you must. As long as you're starting to let people in at the event start time, people will be fine. If you're ready to go 10 minutes before you start and you want to start letting people in, you can. Don't start early, but you can start letting them in early. And sometimes when I'm running improv events, I'll just run a warm-up game while people are coming into the room. It gets people excited, it gets the performers excited, it gets us going, gets hearts pumping, and gets us into character, and allows time for them to come in and enter and, be excited. How do you get control of your event? You set expectations with your group and with your attendees. Have core rules. Follow them. Call people out if they break them. Make them call you out if you break them. It's not bad or mean to announce rules at the beginning of your event. If one of the rules is, hey, don't touch us. We don't want you to touch us. Don't come up here. You're not being mean by saying that. It's a rule I have had to put into my improv events because I had people coming up from the audience and it scared us and made us uncomfortable. And they were just trying to help and they were just trying to be funny. But we had to put in that core rule at the beginning of, hey, don't come up here. We're the ones running the event. And it's not mean to do that. If you're uncomfortable, say something. Always make sure you're allowing your attendees an out if they're not comfortable. You should be allowing yourself an out too, but especially the attendees, you don't know what they're uncomfortable with. And you just have to assume that even though they're there, even though you've made it clear that they might be doing something silly, you don't know what you have consent to do or not. So you need to allow all attendees an out, regardless. I usually just phrased it as I don't believe in peer pressure here. You can peer pressure me because I wrote these lists. I'm comfortable with all of this. But if any of you guys come up here and I ask you to do something you're not comfortable with, don't. And I will thank you. If people came up and didn't have a story or couldn't do what they wanted to do, I would either do it for them or I would just say, hey, thanks. I appreciate you trying. I'd give them the candy that I would have given them anyway and move on because it was never a big deal. When should your panel end? The latest, absolute latest you should end your event is 10 minutes before the next group. Don't mess with their setup time. If you need extra cleanup time, end early. Ask your attendees to help you clean up. It's perfectly acceptable. For a 1 hour event, please run it for at least 40 minutes. If no one came to your event, don't end early. Give it time. You might have a few late stragglers and you can run something together. Stay for 40 minutes if it's an hour-long event and then head out. So what do you need to do after the event and after the attendees leave? Make sure you clean up, fix your chairs and tables, pick up trash, even if it's trash you didn't cause. Leave it better than when you found it, just like camping. And then help the next group set up. It's just good practice, and people will appreciate the fact that you're helping. You know, when you're setting up, you can help the other group clean up, and they might help you set up. And then when the next group is setting up, you're cleaning up and helping them set up. It just helps everything run smoother, helps them start on time, helps them end on time, helps you just build good rapport with people. What can go wrong? How should you plan for it? And computers are evil and know when you're stressed. Here are examples of things that have gone wrong for me. I had no sound. The speakers weren't on. We didn't know how to turn them on. No one knew. We didn't have a projector. And I've had it where the projector wouldn't connect or there wasn't one. That's happened to me both ways. And I've also had a really loud event right next to us and us not having microphones, even though I asked for them. That actually happened like 2 or 3 years in a row. It wasn't great. I don't like the no microphone one. That one was my least favorite. Other things that can go wrong, you're running late and there is absolutely no way to set up and start on time. Only one attendee showed up and still wants you to run the event. This is the funniest slide when there is only one attendee there. We just laughed when I hit that part of the slide. I kind of forgotten that I'd put it in there. And so running the event with one person and then having what to do with only one person comes up is probably one of the funniest things. Or let's say something happens and you can't be there and someone else has to run the event for you. I had to watch the Artist Alley table during my event time because there's no one else to do it. And the person running the event, I wasn't necessarily the host, but it was an Epic Fail Cosplay event. So I watched the table during my event, and the host of the event and guest, Quack and Cosplay, ran it for me because we had all the files saved together and shared them together. It happens. Your reason could be you had car trouble, you got sick, you broke your arm, you have appendicitis. This is why we want to plan for these kinds of things. Stuff happens. So what do you do when everything goes wrong? You improvise and you cry later. Sound doesn't work. Bring a Bluetooth speaker. Might not be as loud, but it's something. Your projector doesn't work. I usually bring 2 to 5 paper copies of every event that I run so that I can run without a computer. No microphones. I hate when this happens, but we just made fun of it. That was the running joke. And we also spoke as loudly as we could. It happens. It is literally one of my least favorite things to happen. I also once had to run an event in silence because there was a podcast in the same room. And so it was really actually kind of entertaining. So we just, no microphones, run a silent event. Only one attendee shows up, run it. They took the time to come to your event. You can take the time to perform it for them. You can't be there. That's why we share these files online. That's why we print hard copies. And that's why we have good friends. So you're running late, and there's just absolutely no way you're going to start on time. It's happened to me one time. I've always made it a point to start my events as on time, like to the second as possible. But I was running late, and it was my fault. I hadn't kept track of time. I didn't show up early enough for setup. This was 100% on me. So I went out into the hall at about the start time and told everyone waiting to come to my event. Due to the consequences of my own actions, I took full responsibility because it was my fault. We're not going to start on time. And I'm sorry. We need between 10 and 15 minutes to set up, get these things going. I will come out in 5 or 10 minutes and give you another update. Please be patient with me. And everyone was fine with it. Nobody got mad because I told them what was happening. That's the biggest issue I see in conventions is when they're running late and they just don't say anything. I hate it. And all they have to say is, hey, we're having some issues, or hey, I messed up and I'm late. And here's an expected time frame. And then just keep to it. I told them I'd come out in 5 minutes and give them another update. It's just open communication. And when you're willing to admit fault, when you're willing to admit those mistakes, attendees are fine with it. We cut out decorating on that event and saved some time. I still feel horrible, but the decorations weren't crucial, so we skipped them. I came out after a few minutes and said, hey, it's going to be the 10 minutes, not the 15. Give me 5 more minutes and then I'll let you guys in. And they went, cool. So they stayed out in the hall. So they were out there for 10 minutes over the start time. Again, I felt awful, but nobody cared. We went in, had a good event. Nobody was mad that we started late because I kept it clear and I kept that communication open and I updated them when I had updates. Your computer. There was one bonsai, I have my computer with me and it died at the con. And there was no backup. It was gone. I had to do everything via paper. If I hadn't made those printouts, I would have been screwed. This was long enough ago, I'm not even 100% sure I had a phone with data on it. That's why we make paper copies for events. Back your work up online. This is why I saved them into Google. If I had gotten another computer, I could have run it on that. And I don't think I was able to do that, but I could have run it on any computer that had internet for a few minutes. I would have downloaded the files onto that computer and run it. Again, this is why we save stuff online. Download all the files beforehand. Assume you won't have an internet connection. I always forget to do this. It's now standard practice due to where I save my files, but I was always forgetting to do that and it always messed things up because I never had an internet connection when I needed it. Also, always assume that your computer battery is going to die and bring your charger. When I first ran this panel, the computer battery actually died while I was setting up, which was funny because I didn't think the battery was low, but I had brought the charger because I had made this slide. So when the battery died, I just kind of started laughing when the battery died and plugged it in and restarted it. The best information I can give you is when everything is going wrong, roll with it. Become Bethesda. It's not a bug, it's a feature. That's how the event is supposed to go. For me, when everything goes wrong, I've literally started to say, well, I am Epic Fail Cosplay. This is on brand. Find that joke that works for you and make that joke and move on. Give yourself a good time and give your attendees a good time and just do the absolute best with the absolute worst circumstances that you have. It's fine. As long as you don't freak out, you'll have a good time. So, after your event is over, you need to review how you felt during the event. You need to get feedback, you need to learn from your mistakes, and you need to be proud of yourself. How did you feel? Was this worth the work? Was it worth everything that happened in the background? Did you get out of it what you wanted? And did you have fun? If these things are negative to you, you don't have to do it again, especially if you're not getting paid. Talk to everyone else that was in the event with you. Did they have fun? Did they get out of it what they wanted? What do they want to do differently? Where do they think worked? Talk to your attendees. It's the most important feedback you could get. Besides going over the event yourself, your attendees' feedback is invaluable. I have never done this, but you can make a Google form for people to fill out and print that QR code for them to scan and give you feedback directly. Or you could reach out to the showrunners of the event that you're at and say, hey, did you guys collect feedback? Is there any feedback that mentions me and my group specifically? Can I get a copy of it? I'd like to look over it and see what I can do to do better. It's okay that things aren't going to be perfect. Learn from it. It's fine when everything goes wrong. It's just a learning experience. I've never had an event go perfectly except one, and it was kind of an accident that it went so well. Even going perfectly was an accident. One thing I did learn over all of these years is I don't need to put in nearly as much work as I think I do. I used to build an entire RPG for a 1 hour event. Last year, I made a linked PDF. It was a lot easier, it was a lot faster. It was actually more chaotic, but that just made the event more fun. Everyone was just teasing me the whole time. I was exhausted. It was just a good time. Put in the work, but remember that you don't need to build an entire video game. You're building a 1 hour event, and oftentimes you're doing this without payment. Respect your time. Make a good event, but respect your actual time. And also remember to be proud of yourself for running these things. Be proud of all that work that you put in. Be happy about what you had fun doing. Prepare yourself better for the next time in the future. And especially remember not to wallow in everything that went wrong. Not everyone is willing to put in the work to run an event or a panel at a con, and you did. So you need to be proud of yourself for that. You deserve to be proud of yourself for that. Good or bad. You can now celebrate that it's over. That's legitimately how I felt at the end of the cosplay contest after I performed. It was over. And I was happy I did it. I didn't care if I'd done good or bad. I was just so happy it was over. And I celebrated for that. You need to remember that the experience of that event is that enjoyment that you're having. It's the enjoyment that you're giving other people. And when everything goes wrong, if you powered through it, you still get to celebrate it. Just be proud of yourself. You did something cool. Here are some additional notes. If you're not professional, they'll ask you to leave. It could be at the convention, it could be before the convention, it could be asking you not to come back. If they're not professional, you don't have to take it. You get to decide for yourself if what you're going through and how they're treating you is worth seeing out the event, or if it's better to stop. It's always been worth it to me to make attendees happy and see out the event for that. When I left at the end of 2023, I realized I should have left probably a few years sooner. But I really just enjoyed that moment of seeing everyone happy at the con so much that I was powering through it. That's why when my friend had to leave this year, because I had returned in solidarity, I knew it was better to step away in solidarity as well. Because none of us deserve to be treated poorly, and it doesn't have to get that bad. But you still have to stay professional. Regardless if money or benefits exchange hands, everyone should be respectful and professional. I was thinking about that meme that I've got on the screen. Sometimes people use respect to mean treating someone like a person, and sometimes they use respect to mean treating someone like an authority. And sometimes people who are used to being treated like an authority say, if you won't respect me, I won't respect you. But what they mean is, if you won't treat me like an authority, I won't treat you like a person. And they think they're being fair, but they aren't, and it's not okay. Never stoop to the level of the person disrespecting. You can quit, do it in writing, and stay respectful and professional. If there's somebody above them that you have contact information for, include them in all of your communications, but keep this stuff in writing and then move on. They may speak ill of you, whether or not you stay. Keep all of this in writing. Stay kind, stay respectful, because everyone who sees them treating you badly will eventually come to realize the only person being disrespectful, being rude, being bad is the person who's bad talking to you. If you stay quiet and only come forward if whatever they say is, so outrageously, the literal definition of defamation, and all you say is, here's what I said. And you can screenshot your email and say, hey, I had to step back. Sorry. That's all you have to say. And if you have to make a public announcement that you're no longer going to be there, you can just say, hey, due to personal reasons, I can no longer be there. You can also reach out to other cons to work for them and say, yeah, I had to leave due to personal conflicts. I don't want to speak ill of anyone. I just knew it was best for me personally to step back. That's all you have to do. That's all you have to say. The people who mistreat you, the bad things that they say about you will speak more about them than yourself, and you can move on. I want to remind people that the consequences of someone else's actions cannot and will not ever be your fault. The reverse is also true, but when you see someone living the consequences of their actions, even if your participation in any tangential way was part of that. It's not your fault that they're seeing these consequences. But if you're the one behaving badly, being immature, speaking ill, and you're receiving consequences, it's no one else's fault if someone calls you out for bad behavior. You deserve to stand up for yourself, and you deserve enough self love to know when you need to back off and back away or defend yourself. And if someone gets consequences of mistreating you, it's not your fault that they mistreated you. It's not your fault that they got caught. But it's always worth being kind or being quiet. Maybe the real anime bonsai was the friends we made along the way. That's a joke I started making a while ago. I just want to say thank you to anyone who ever came to any of my events and had a good time. I had so much fun at Bonsai, and I was sad to leave last year. I was sad when I stepped away again this year. But if you ever came to any of my events, if I ever made you smile and laugh, if you ever had to introduce yourself to me 4 times because I can't remember who you are and I don't know your name, thank you for coming. Thank you for being part of my anime bonsai. And I really hope that you guys have a lot of fun this weekend. I might show up long enough to say hi to a couple of people, but I don't know. There's a lot of hurt feelings involved with some of the people at this convention. But I still wanted to provide this panel as a thank you to anyone that ever wanted to see me or ever came to see me. You guys have been a lot of fun, and I really, really hope to continue to get to see you at the other cons that I'm going to, either as a guest or a vendor or an artist or an attendee. Come say hi, introduce yourself to me for the 5th time, and maybe I'll actually remember who you are. Thank you again. Come say hi.